Have you ever wondered what the world would be like today if wars never happened? Would we live in a peaceful world where resources aren't wasted on conflicts? And how would our civilization have progressed without the devastation of war? In this video, we'll imagine a world without war and explore how things might have been drastically different. Get ready for an exciting journey as we dive into the endless possibilities of a world where war never existed. Imagine a world where, from the early 20th century, the great powers never engaged in the devastating wars. No World War I, no World War II, and no major military conflicts throughout the 20th century. Everything remains peaceful, and nations focus on economic, cultural, and technological development. We wouldn't have the large-scale wars that altered political landscapes, power struggles that led to the fall of empires, and perhaps we wouldn't have genocide or the long-lasting scars of war. Many may think this is an impossible thought, that war is an inevitable part of human history. But what if, at some pivotal moment, world leaders had chosen the path of peace over conflict? Would we have a better world? Without world wars, our world could have been radically different. Nations might have focused on improving the lives of their people rather than enduring the devastation of war. Economies could have grown at a much faster rate without the burden of warfare, and countries could have worked together to address global challenges instead of being torn apart by territorial disputes and power struggles. We might have witnessed a world where humanity and nations are not driven by division and violence, but by unity and progress. A world without war would have significant consequences, both positive and negative. First, the obvious benefits of not having war would be readily apparent. The global economy could have developed much faster, as nations would not need to dedicate vast resources to building military forces and engaging in warfare. Instead, those funds could have been redirected to sectors like education, healthcare, and infrastructure, improving the quality of life for citizens. Technologies could have progressed at a much faster pace without the disruptions of conflict, creating innovations across industries and addressing global issues like climate change, poverty, and water scarcity. Countries might have collaborated more closely instead of competing for power and resources. A world without war could also be a peaceful world, where nations do not confront each other in bloody wars, but instead focus on solving common challenges like sustainable development, environmental protection, and improving the quality of life for all. International cooperation could have become the central element in tackling global problems. However, a world without war also would not be without its negatives. One of the crucial factors is the absence of major societal upheavals that wars often bring about. While war is a devastating force, it also acts as a catalyst for major change in societies. Without war, society may have evolved more slowly, as conflicts often force nations to rethink how they organize and manage their economies and social systems. Furthermore, without war, ideals of military power and victory might not have been tested, leading to a lack of revolutionary changes in politics and economics. Imagine a world without war where two countries, Germany and Japan, are not faced with global conflicts. Germany, in a scenario without World War I, is not constrained and penalized by the Treaty of Versailles. Instead, the country would have the chance to develop freely and prosper. German scientists and engineers would continue their research and development of advanced technology without the interruptions of devastating wars. We could envision a future where Germany is a leader in green technology, playing a significant role in solving global environmental issues. Without war, without hostility between nations, resources could be focused on sustainable development rather than weapons and military forces. Similarly, Japan, without war, would not have resorted to militarism to seek resources. Instead, the country might have focused on developing innovative industries like electronics and information technology, bringing prosperity to the entire Asian region. Japan could have become a hub of innovation, not just in technology, but also in fields like education, healthcare, and culture. A world without war would offer these nations the opportunity to connect and collaborate more strongly, instead of having to compete and clash. When considering a world without war, we must understand the fundamental factors that would change entirely. According to scientific studies on societal development, wars are often a powerful driver of change in the economy and society, but this comes with heavy losses. A study by the Institute of International Economics, IE, shows that nations not engaged in war could spend around 10% of their GDP on research and development, R&D, instead of allocating funds to the military and weaponry. If the world had been unaffected by devastating wars, humanity would have had the opportunity to use resources to address global issues like climate change and poverty. One theory in international economics, known as the democratic peace theory, argues that democratic nations tend not to go to war with each other because they do not want their citizens to suffer. Without war, nations would likely develop stronger democratic models and international cooperation. International organizations, like the United Nations, could play a more powerful role in maintaining peace and promoting collaboration rather than merely overseeing conflicts. Additionally, one of the most crucial factors in the modern era is technological development. While wars can spur rapid technological advancements, they also divert vast resources into military industries. A study from Harvard University shows that in years without war, investments in healthcare, education, and renewable energy could increase significantly, creating a more sustainable society. In a world without war, we might witness a new era of science and technology, where nations collaborate to offer creative solutions to global challenges. In addition to the direct benefits of a world without war, we also need to consider several potential side scenarios that might arise. For instance, in a peaceful world, the distribution of resources and power among nations might be reorganized. Countries would not need to allocate a large portion of national resources to their military, allowing them to focus on developing essential public services such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Nations in poverty-stricken regions, like parts of Africa and South Asia, could have received greater support from developed countries, providing opportunities for a world with less stark inequality in development. However, new issues might also arise. A world without war could lead to passivity in addressing political issues or latent conflicts. While there would be no large-scale wars, regional disputes or border tensions could still persist. Without world wars, there might be a stagnation in addressing urgent issues like international crime, terrorism, or humanitarian crisis. We might imagine that nations would have developed new organizations or cooperative systems to tackle these issues. But this would require a shift in global thinking, something that is not always easily achieved. Additionally, the absence of war might result in countries failing to test their national defense and security capabilities. Nations might not fully realize the importance of preparing for unpredictable events, which could pose a risk if unforeseen crises emerge. So, what would the world be like if there were no wars? Could we live in a better society where resources aren't wasted on warfare, but invested in sustainable development and peace? However, are we truly ready to change our mindset to achieve that? If we didn't have wars to drive major shifts, would advancements in society, technology, and politics occur at the pace we see today? Let's think about an unimaginable possibility. Could we actually eliminate war completely from the world? Could nations truly collaborate to solve global issues without the need for conflicts? If there were no devastating wars, could we develop a stronger global system where all nations work together for the common good of humanity? But what would happen if a sudden war broke out for an unforeseen reason? Could humanity learn from its past mistakes and stop before it's too late? Could we maintain peace in a world that's increasingly complex and evolving? These questions don't have simple answers, but they make us reflect on the nature of existence and the progress of mankind. In the end, a world without war could offer incredible opportunities, but it's not without its challenges. We could live in a society where resources are focused on solving critical issues like poverty, climate change, and global education. The world could be a more peaceful place when nations collaborate rather than confront each other. Yet the big question remains, could we truly maintain peace in a world full of constant change and increasingly complex challenges? Could we learn from history and find peaceful ways to progress instead of paying the price with bloodshed and the destruction of war? While a world without war may seem ideal, that doesn't mean we would be free of other issues. Conflicts of ideas, unequal power distribution, and a lack of international cooperation could still drive division. However, one clear lesson from this story is that peace is not something we can simply have. It is something we must work for, fight for, and maintain. We need to learn how to collaborate, listen, and respect each other's differences. So the question remains, if there were no wars, would we truly create a better world? Or would we simply create a world with different problems? What can we do to change the present and build a more peaceful future? What are your thoughts on this?